back to Rebellious Motherhood. Today I'm coming to you from our homeschool room. It's a little cluttered, a little messy, and I need to clean it up. But I'm procrastinating because I don't want to do it just yet. So instead I'm going to record this video because Ethan is asleep and everybody else is kind of being quiet. So I think I probably have about 10 minutes before somebody realizes that I'm doing something else. So today, if this is your first time here with us, welcome. Rebellious Motherhood is about all things motherhood, but not only motherhood. And today I'm actually going to talk about part of my faith journey. I have been reading in the Old Testament. I've been studying the Old Testament for a while now. And I realized like there are a ton of numbers. And I have always said like I am not a numbers person. I'm not good at math. I don't enjoy numbers. As a matter of fact, when people start like rattling off statistics about anything, like I completely stop listening because numbers are like irrelevant to me unless it's about something being on sale, and then we're going to figure out those percentages real quick. That's not a problem. But other numbers, I just don't like, I don't care about, right? So I realized that as I'm reading 1st and 2nd Kings, like there's a lot of numbers in here. We're keeping the track of numbers of this and numbers of that. And I honestly, like, it's like, I'm like, why do we care, God? Like, we don't have a tabernacle anymore. Why does it matter how many candlesticks are where? Things like that. And after I finished 1st and 2nd Kings, surprisingly enough, I felt God pushing me to select the book of, you guessed it, Numbers. And I was like, well, isn't that funny? Numbers. So I was like, okay, let's read the book of Numbers. And don't you know, it gets its name honest because the first 4 chapters is a whole lot of numbers. We're keeping track of how many people are in all these different clans. And that's kind of like way back, and I don't really see the significance in knowing how many numbers were here, how many numbers were there. This clan camped over on this side, and this is the number of them. And it's like, okay, like, are we going to get to the payoff of like all together there were this many numbers? Like, why does this matter? And, at one point I'm like, God, I'm trying to be obedient here and read through this book of Numbers, but I don't really understand why you recorded this for us because I don't even really like numbers. And this is like, it's kind of boring just having to hear about, this clan had this many people and this clan had this many people and they settled over there. It like starts feeling redundant to me and I see no point for it. And I wasn't trying to be disrespectful of God, but I was just kind of like, God, this is like, I'm just going through the motions here. This means nothing to me. And then I could kind of feel the Holy Spirit stir my heart a little bit. And it was kind of like, well, Stacey, why do you feel that way? And I was like, well, I'm not a numbers person. And the Holy Spirit said, like, I saw fit to put these numbers in my word. So it's your job to seek me and ask me why, not dismiss the numbers. So it's kind of like, okay, better rethink my situation here, right? It's kind of like my kids, like, you better rethink your attitude. And I could just sense that the Holy Spirit was like, what is your problem with numbers? And I'm like, well, I don't like numbers. I'm not good at numbers. I kind of felt traumatized by numbers because I was one of those kids who grew up watching Sesame Street. And when that count came on there and he did that scary laugh, it terrified me as a kid. So I was like done with numbers when I was 5. But as I was thinking about that, like, that's kind of funny. God was like, yeah, you are afraid of numbers. And I was like, well, I mean, not really. That's just a funny story. And God was like, no, you're afraid of numbers. You're afraid of numbers, and you need to think about why you're afraid of numbers. And so I began to think about it and pray about it. And as I was working through this thing with numbers, It's like, I could feel things come into my mind, like numbers are very important in our lives, right? But we don't like to talk about some numbers. Now, we can talk about views on YouTube, we can talk about followers on our social media, all of those numbers we can share. But I was raised very clearly, there are some numbers that you don't talk about. There's some numbers that you don't share. You never ask a lady her age. They don't want to share that number. That would be rude. You don't ask how much a gift costs or how much money somebody makes. You sure don't ask how much somebody gives back on their taxes. Those are numbers that are off limits. And as I was thinking about these numbers that we don't talk about and these numbers that we don't share, it's taboo to share them, to talk about them, unless you're bragging about your millions, which was not happening here. I just was like, well, God, what does fear and numbers have to do with anything? What does sharing numbers have to do with anything? And I could just feel him gently say to me, Stacey, you're afraid of numbers because it tests your faith. And I was like, oh no. There's that test word. This is going to be a doozy. And I could just feel myself thinking through some things that I had been praying about and some things that I had been asking God for. And while you might not want to put certain numbers out there because you don't want it to be misconstrued as bragging or prideful, there's one place that you can go with your numbers, and that is with God. As a matter of fact, I could feel him saying to me, Stacey, you know that thing you want? You're going to have to say the number or I'm not going to give it to you, because I'm trying to show you that that thing that you're asking for is what I put within your heart to ask me for. And you're going to ask me for it, and you're going to say that number for a specific reason, because it's only by saying that number that then you can see that I gave it to you. See, when you pray and you say, please God, meet all my needs, that's not very specific. So how do you know when I do it or when I don't? But if you say to me, Father, I need this specific number for whatever. Maybe it's a specific number of money you need. Maybe it's a specific pair of shorts that you need for your kids. Maybe it's a specific amount of groceries that you need. But when you say that specific number, you open the door for me to show you that I will keep that specific promise. You will see that I have kept and met that specific need. If you're not specific, then it's just like, oh, the Lord blesses me. And he was like, yes, I do bless you, but I bless you with what you specifically need. So I had to get over my fear of numbers, and I had to get real honest. And I said, God, this is the number, not that I need, like I didn't actually need this number, but I said, God, this is the number that I want to see, so that I know that you hear me, that you answer my prayers. And I'm going to tell y'all something. He gave me the number that I asked for. He blessed me with the number that I asked for. And if I hadn't been specific and said a number, I would have missed the miracle that he wanted to do in my life. Did you get that? If I hadn't specifically asked, I would have missed the miracle for fear. So I just want to encourage you today. If there's a number that you need, if there's a specific thing that you need, don't be afraid to go all in and be specific and tell God what you need. Because the beauty of it is he'll build your faith by giving you that specific number, or maybe he gives you above that number as a bonus blessing, or maybe it's not that number that you asked for, but he shows you, I gave you what you needed. Always, when you get specific with God, your faith is built because you see how he works. It's a really amazing thing. Tell me what you have seen happen in your life. Comment below, like, what is a miracle that God has done for you that's just unexplainable? And sometimes it's like a little thing. It's like, write this thing down and then watch God give it to you. What is your miracle? I want to hear your miracles. Comment below. See you real soon.